Hello YouTube, another video by me, JC. Hey everybody, so this video is going to be essentially broken down into three parts. First part being just something simple. I'm going to talk a little bit more about New Year's resolutions and what I plan on doing with that. So I'm going to add more resolution talk from the last video that I discussed about it. The second point is going to be in regards to the inclusion of trans people within the gay culture or gay community, with a specific example of, gay hookup sites such as Grindr. Yay, that'll be interesting. And then the final point to which I would like to discuss, essentially the second point will lead to the bigger question where I'd like to talk about the importance of spaces and who is allowed in certain spaces and who is not allowed, and why society tends to separate certain groups of people into different categories or spaces based on their demographic. Let's get started. All right, so the first topic here is New Year's resolutions. I've actually added a lot more to the resolutions wish list for the year 2018. I have a girlfriend of mine who's a lovely Christian lady. Her and I talk a lot in regards to her religiosity, and we also like to talk about me being agnostic. We've lived together for years. Her and I get along just super great.
Okay, that's a little weird.
So I mentioned to her about my resolution in regards to not drinking so much. And then she seemed to tell me that she doesn't actually go by resolutions. She goes by goals. And I thought, that's actually a very interesting way of looking at things. So instead of having a discussion about New Year's resolutions, I'm going to do New Year's goals. So my first goal is to drink less, because I've noticed that the past summer and Christmas holidays, I actually drank a lot. And so I'm going to minimize that by drinking less or none at all. So that's the first one. Second resolution is going to be going to work out a lot more. I find that in my mid-30s, I'm still very fit, I'm very skinny, but I tend to lose a lot of my stamina or endurance. In saying that, in order to rebuild up my endurance and stamina level, I'm going to try and do a lot more exercise to build that up. As all of you know, I actually do aerial gymnastics, which is AKA circus performance. And that keeps me in shape, and it keeps me having upper body strength. I mean, just look at these guns.
Honey, you mean Hercules.
I don't get enough training for endurance. So I think I'm going to actually join a gym once I figure out the job situation and have a steady schedule. I'm going to join up a gym again and actually stick with it. And this tends to be a lot of people's New Year's resolutions or goals, so I'm just kind of jumping the bandwagon there. And probably the third and most important one, which will be the hardest to actually kick, is staying off Facebook. Yeah, I tend to waste a lot of my time, guys, being on Facebook, being a warrior or a complainer, or pointing out people's flawed logics in a lot of the media that we are presented with. So I comment a lot on videos presented to me. I support and defend cops when cop videos are out and about for people who have a hate on for cops. I'm constantly bickering with these people who tend to be strangers online. People who I absolutely don't have any idea who they are, what their lives are like, and my boyfriend actually brought it up, saying that you argue too much on Facebook, so I'm going to try and actually decrease the level of interaction that I have with these people on Facebook.
That's not true. That's impossible.
Now, that doesn't mean I'm going to give up Facebook, of course, because I don't think nobody can. But I'm going to minimize my social interaction on Facebook. Now on to the next topic. Topic number 2, the inclusion of trans people within the gay community. Okay, so first and foremost, I want to say that I have absolutely no problem with trans people. I really don't. If somebody is born with a particular body but has a different mind, which is telling them that they aren't meshing up together, this is called gender dysphoria. where they feel uncomfortable with who they are and what their identity is based on what their biology is telling them versus what their mind is telling them. I have absolutely no problem with a trans person who wishes to transition to the other side of the binary gender spectrum, because there's only two. What I do have a problem with is this forced inclusion that the trans community is placing upon the rest of society. As a very specific example is the inclusion of trans movement within gay hookup sites. I mean, who doesn't want to talk about gay hookup sites, right? Seriously though, we live in an age of iPhone technology, smartphone technology, where, we can get limitless amount of information or apps through this technology to help navigate our lives. And some of that is online dating. I will admit, I actually do have a Grindr app, and it's technically the way that my boyfriend and I actually met up. Wait, you're saying a gay hookup site actually brought two people together and they can have a relationship, not just sex? Yep, that's pretty much what I'm saying, yes. Huh. Cool, I guess. But yeah, my boyfriend and I actually met each other on Grindr, a gay hookups app. And from then on, we've been in a relationship for over almost 2 years now, actually. 2? Yes, 2. But the point is that I actually don't use my Grindr for the sole purpose of hooking up anymore. Why? Because I am in a relationship and I don't really need extra curricular activities to keep me distracted. But the site is essentially for the purpose of hooking up with men anonymously. So the purpose of Grindr was for gay men to find other gay men and have a romping good time. But in the last couple of months, at the butt end of 2017, Grindr decided to be inclusive by allowing more trans people into the group. They've also included a lot of ads and emails in regards to talking about gay culture and gay stuff and trans things and blah, blah, blah. Now, trans people have always been a part of Grindr, but they've just been very small and very minimal. There wasn't this necessity to include them in the space, if you know what I'm saying, because there are some gay men who are into trans people. And that's fine. I honestly don't care about that. Whatever tickles your fancy. But lately, in the last couple of months, we have been noticing that these ads and these trans community activists have been pushing social justice and the inclusion of trans community within a site that is predominantly for gay men. Now, I'll state this again. Grindr is a gay hookup site. Okay, so when it comes to trans women, these are biologically male who are transitioning to become female. They see themselves as female. So it kind of contradicts the inclusion of trans people within a gay hookup site because it's men seeking men. Now, obviously, on a biological level, on a more sexual drive level, we have men who are interested in men for their penis, for their masculine form, some of them for their hair, facial hair, and chest hair, like me. The inclusion of trans women is men who are passing off as women who have more effeminate features, who are going through transitions themselves, whatever level that is, and they are passing off as female. Now, why do we have females in an all gay male hookup site? The beauty of this app is that with Grindr, you can actually block somebody just willy-nilly, and that's fine. I don't normally block a lot of people because I just don't think that's really progressive to do anything much. I mean, it's your decision, whatever, you can do that. I found lately I have been blocking a lot more people in regards to people I'm not interested in, people who instantly show me their dick pics, and I'm like, once you've seen one dick, you've seen them all, right? And other times they've been downright rude to me, so then I just block them. But this inclusion of trans people, it really kind of irks me because in the profile section of Grindr, we are now adding gender pronouns. So not only is it that a gay site for gay men who are men who like the D and predominantly have the pronouns he, his, and him, now we are including people who self-identify as the opposite gender. I just think it's irrelevant, and I think this inclusion is just too forced, and I don't like being forced into things against my consent. Is this really a good thing? I think trans people are okay, but why can't they have their own app in regards to dating? Like, why do they need to involve themselves in a predominantly gay male hookup site? That's my question. Like, I just don't understand. We have Tinder, we have Grindr, we have OkCupid, we have, Christian Mingle. Back when I was in Australia, I got onto a site called Blender, and Blender was for people who were bisexual or open-minded. We have apps for fetish people as well.
You had my curiosity, but now you have my attention.
So why is it that a trans person can't have access to a trans hookup site? Like, I don't understand why it's so difficult for somebody not to come up with this idea to have a dating app for strictly trans people. Again, no problem with trans people. I just have a problem with them forcing acceptance onto different groups. To me, this feels like the trans activists have infiltrated into a part of gay culture where back in the past, a lot of gay men and women didn't have the chance to have these spaces. And now they are overstepping their boundaries because they want everyone to accept them. And I've stated this before. How can you expect society to accept you when you don't accept yourself in the first place? So again, I'm not trying to shit on trans people. You have a right to exist. You're still people. You're just going through this weird identity crisis thing, and it has to do a lot with your gender dysphoria. And that's fine. I have no problem with that. But I just don't like you imposing yourself into spaces that don't necessarily involve you. Which brings me to my third point of this video. The inclusion of minorities into the greater space. So a lot of this has to do with in the inclusion of small minority groups such as trans people, even gays and lesbians, because at one point being gay was illegal, all right? And people were punished for it if they were seen breaking the law. Now, thankfully, we live in a time where people have sympathy towards minorities. Being gay is not really a big deal anymore, which I love. So they're being treated as normal human beings who just have a slight difference in sexuality and a slight difference in interest, sexual preference in other people. So that is a good thing. This idea is that on the left, and this is predominantly in the left ballpark, they are constantly forcing minorities into spaces that doesn't necessarily cater to them. For instance, there is the Boy Scouts issue where a young girl wanted to be part of the Boy Scouts and she got in. But it's stupid because she's not a boy, she's biologically a girl, and we also have Girl Scouts. Like, we have all these different groups that cater to girls, and we should have spaces that cater to boys. I mean, that sounds equal, doesn't it? But she included herself because she feels like she's being denied the spaces of boys, or maybe feminists and liberals think that women should be in all spaces at all times. And the fact of life is that no, you don't. There are certain spaces that delegate to certain demographics of people, whether based on their sexuality, whether based on their skin color, whether based on their sex or their political beliefs, their religious beliefs. Not every space deserves everybody in it. And not every space will cater to you based on these factors. And that is okay. So for instance, I don't think that a lot of religious spaces, such as the Catholic Church or maybe even some forms of Christianity, they don't really like homosexuality. So why would they cater to homosexual individuals when it is frowned upon within their religious belief? So I can safely assume that I wouldn't really be welcome at a Catholic church. And that's okay. I would just go to another place that caters to homosexual people and who are more open-minded. That's it. But again, the left's mentality here is inclusion of everybody, especially minorities who are supposedly oppressed by the system. And there's so many things wrong with this. One, it implies that all minority groups or invisible minorities are somehow always oppressed. And that's not the case at all. Some of us are fine and dandy. Some of us are just getting through life, people trying to find purpose in life and all that jazz. We act in a similar manner to, the normal people, straight people, married couples, women and men. Like we want to be treated as normal. You can't treat us as normal if you constantly try to protect us because of your belief that we are somehow oppressed. And then the second problem with this is that we are forcing people within a space that is not of a natural flow. When it comes to acceptance should be treated as a natural occurrence, not a forced one. So for instance, this is the reason why I don't get mad at people who mistake me as a girl because I'm androgynous. I don't get mad at them. I tell them about my androgyny so that hopefully they can come to the conclusion themselves that, hey, this guy is just a little bit effeminate and not really a threat, or I shouldn't really treat him like shit just because he's different. By educating people on who I am and what my beliefs are, one-on-one communication, they can come to the conclusion themselves to whether or not they want to accept me. Therefore, it's easier, it's less violent sometimes, there's not high emotions for this kind of thing. Allowing somebody else to accept you on their own terms, I think is the best way that we actually have acceptance in the world. So we can't do this when minorities are forcing themselves into other people's spaces. And you see this a lot in male-dominant spaces. Okay, so I get it, feminists. There was a movement for women to get out of the private sphere, aka the kitchen or the household, and to bring them up into the public sphere, the public space, because men dominated the public space and women dominated the private space. Both dynamics actually had their own power structures within these two spaces. But now, since the 1950s/60s, where feminism really took off, feminists believe that all women have to be in every space. Now, I support women being out in the public space and, enjoying the same benefits that men have always really enjoyed. That I have not a problem. It's when feminists are forcing women into male-dominant spaces because of patriarchy, but then create a double standard when men want to join female-only spaces, and that seems as misogynistic or dominating or rape. When it comes to feminism and SJWs and all that, they assume that they have the right to enter into somebody else's spaces. But when somebody else from that space wants to enter into theirs, nope, we're not having it because we need our spaces because we're a minority and we're somehow oppressed and you're oppressing me. So that's what gets under my skin, guys, is that this idea that society has to cater to minority groups when they assume that all minority groups are automatically oppressed and are being denied something. They're not really being denied anything. They're just not welcome in certain spaces. And again, that is okay. So the inclusion of trans activists in gay hookup sites, I don't agree with. Make your own space, create your own dating app. It is not that hard. And in fact, you can actually get a few trans people to start their own business and actually become successful with this idea. Maybe I should patent this. And we also have spaces that are predominantly for boys and then predominantly for girls. It's okay to be separate, and girls don't have to be in the spaces of boys 100% of the time. You are not denying girls or women their rights. You're not denying them inclusion. It's just certain spaces don't need women in it. Now, I'm pretty sure some feminists out there is going to say that I'm misogynistic and, controlling of women, but that's not the case. But we all know how that goes.
To you, that's a whole other level of harassment, really.
Again, with this idea of inclusion into spaces, the left think everybody needs to be involved in every space at all times. Otherwise, if you deny that to somebody, you're a bigot. While on the other side, I find there are people who accept that there are certain spaces that are not open to certain types of people.
Well, excuse me, princess. You're welcome here.
And I'm in that camp. So I don't like this trans movement within the gay hookup site. Yes, it's kind of exclusive to trans people, but I'm sorry, that's just the way it is. Human beings will interact with those who are like them, and we should have the spaces available for people who respond to like people. I'm not denying trans-only spaces. I'm not denying women only spaces. I'm not denying black people only spaces. It's just that when you have these spaces for visible minorities, you have to have it for the other group. This is why I support religious only spaces. This is why I support white straight men spaces. Why? Because I'm not a fucking hypocrite. So there's my 3 topics, guys. My New Year's goals for 2018. The inclusion of trans people within the gay hookup culture and why it's irrelevant. And in fact, actually imposing onto gay men, which are minorities. So, and then the third half is that not all spaces require everybody to be in it. It is okay to have different groups. And this is where the real tolerance comes from, guys. We can tolerate people who are not like us, who are different, in having their own spaces. I'll be on this side of the fence, and you can stay on your side of the fence. Sound good? All right, guys, if you like this video, like, subscribe, comment your thoughts on the things I've said. Let me know. All right, guys, so remember to always take care of one another, and I will see you next video. Bye. Wow.